The insult. The big meeting room was full of aliens from all over the galaxy. Ambassador Jun-Ho Kim sat at the human table with his team. Next to him was Commander Hye-Jin Park, a tough military woman with sharp eyes. On his other side sat Dr. Tae-min Lee, their smartest scientist, who always carried a small computer tablet. Humans had been part of the Galactic Federation for 20 years now. That was not very long compared to other alien races. Some of the aliens had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They still looked at humans like children who had just learned to walk. The meeting was about trade problems. Every week, different alien races would come here to complain about something. Today was different. Today, the Vorthak Empire was angry about humans trying to do business in their space. Prime Minister Gulthex stood up at his table. He was ugly even for a Vorthak. His 4 yellow eyes glowed with hate. His skin looked like old leather, and his mouth had too many teeth. When he talked, his voice sounded like metal scraping against metal. "These mammals," Gulthex said, pointing at the humans, "think they deserve the same rights as real civilizations. They crawled out of their little planet yesterday, and now they want to sit with species who have ruled the stars for millions of years." The room got very quiet. Even the chattering Zilani aliens stopped talking. Ambassador Kim kept his face calm, but Commander Park's hand moved slowly toward her weapon. She did this when she was getting ready for trouble. Gulthex was not done talking. He seemed to enjoy making the humans look small in front of everyone. "I think we need to teach these baby humans a lesson. They need to learn what happens when children try to play with adults." He pressed a button, and a big hologram appeared in the air. It showed 3 human colony worlds floating in space like blue and green jewels. The first one was called New Seoul. It was a farming world where families grew food and raised children. The second was Pusan Station, where humans studied new science. The third was Jeju Paradise, where people went to relax and enjoy beautiful gardens. "Pick one," Gulthex demanded. His voice was full of evil pleasure. "We will show our superior weapons on your pathetic little world. Think of it as school for stupid humans." All the aliens in the room stared at the humans. Some looked worried, like the wise Eldari who had seen many wars. Others looked excited, like the violent Krone who loved fighting. But everyone wanted to see what the humans would do. Ambassador Kim stood up slowly. He was not a big man, but when he stood, he seemed to fill the whole room. "Prime Minister Gulthex, are you saying you will attack innocent human families?" Not saying human, promising. Kim looked at his team. Dr. Lee was typing fast on her tablet, doing math that nobody else could understand. Commander Park had gone very still, like a cat about to jump on a mouse. "I see," Kim said in a quiet voice that somehow everyone could hear clearly. "Then I use Article 47 of the Galactic Charter. This is now a formal war declaration." The room exploded with surprised voices. Elder Vosshai, the oldest and wisest alien there, looked scared. "Ambassador Kim, maybe we can find another way to solve this problem." "There is no talking with monsters," Kim replied. He never looked away from Gulthex. "The Vorthak Empire has 7 days to take back their threat. After that—" He stopped talking for a moment, and every alien in the room felt cold for reasons they could not explain. "After that, they will learn why humans have a saying: never start a fight with someone who has nothing left to lose." Kim and his team walked out of the room. The aliens sat in shocked silence. Nobody could shake the feeling that something very important and very dangerous had just happened. The Vorthak, however, were already making plans to attack. Gulthex laughed his horrible metal-scraping laugh. "Humans have 12 old warships. What can they possibly do to the mighty Vorthak Empire?" His military advisor, General Thokmar, nodded. "Our 7th Fleet has 43 heavy cruisers. Each one is bigger than a human city. We will crush them like insects." "Good," Gulthex said. "Make sure the whole galaxy watches. When we destroy their little farming world, every species will... Remember not to challenge the Vorthak Empire." But if the Vorthak had been paying attention, they would have noticed something strange. As the human team walked through the station's corridors, Dr. Lee was sending secret messages on her tablet. The messages went to every human colony and every human ship. The messages were very short, just coordinates and two words. Execute Prometheus. All. Across human space, colonies went dark. Not destroyed, but simply stopped talking to the outside galaxy. To most aliens watching, it looked like humans were hiding in fear of Vorthak revenge. They were wrong. In hidden places that no alien knew about, human shipyards came to life. Workers who had been waiting for 20 years finally got the call they had been trained for. Giant machines started building. Scientists who had spent decades on secret projects finally opened their sealed orders. The humans had been in the galaxy for 20 years, but they had not been sleeping. They had been watching, learning, and preparing for the day when someone would mistake their peaceful nature for weakness. That day had finally come. On New Sol, Colonial Governor Sung-Ho Yoon received a priority message from Earth. It was from the President himself. The message was simple. Evacuate all non-essential personnel immediately. Operation Prometheus is now active. Yoon looked out his office window at the peaceful farms and schools below. Children were playing in the gardens. Their grandparents had planted. Families were having dinner together. In a few days, Vorthak warships would try to destroy all of this. He smiled grimly and started making calls. The Vorthak thought they were about to teach humanity a lesson. They had no idea that they were about to receive one instead. The lesson would be simple. Never threaten human children. The cost of that lesson would be higher than the Vorthak Empire could possibly imagine. The massacre 6 days after the meeting, the Vorthak war fleet appeared in the New Sol system like a swarm of metal monsters. 43 huge warships surrounded the peaceful farming world. Each ship was as big as a human city and covered in weapons that could destroy mountains. The human colony had almost no defenses. 3 small patrol ships tried to protect the whole world, but they were like toys compared to the Vorthak fleet. The orbital defense platform was old and weak. It was more for show than for real fighting. Colonial Governor Sung-Ho Yoon sat in his office watching the alien ships block out the sun. His hands shook as he received a message from the Vorthak fleet commander, Admiral Carvex. People of New Sol. The alien's voice was full of cruel pleasure. You have 1 hour to surrender completely. If you do not give up, we will turn your world into space dust. Your choice is simple. Bow down or die. Down on the planet's surface, Dr. Min Jung Choi was at the primary school helping evacuate children. She had been a terraforming engineer before, becoming a teacher. She loved helping dead worlds become green and alive. Now she was trying to save young lives instead of planets. Her 5-year-old daughter, Soo Jin, held her hand tightly as they ran toward the emergency shelters. The little girl collected pictures of alien flowers and dreamed of planting gardens on faraway worlds, just like her mother. "Mommy, why are the ships so big?" Soo Jin asked, looking up at the metal monsters that covered the sky. "Don't look up, sweetheart," Dr. Choi said, pulling her daughter faster. "Just keep running." They would not make it to the shelters in time. All across New Sol, families were trying to escape. Farmers left their fields, teachers grabbed their students, parents carried babies toward underground bunkers that were never meant to protect against this kind of attack. 1 hour passed exactly. The Vorthak bombardment began without warning. Beams of energy fell from the sky like deadly rain. The first shots hit the 3 human patrol ships. The small vessels fought bravely, but they were destroyed in seconds. They managed to damage 2 Vorthak cruisers before they died. Then the real destruction started. The Vorthak did not just attack military targets. They destroyed everything. Schools became craters of melted glass. Hospitals vanished in balls of fire. The beautiful terraforming gardens that had taken 50 years to grow turned to ash in minutes. Dr. Choi and Soo Jin were running across the main square when the energy beam hit near them. The mother threw herself over her daughter, trying to protect her with her own body. It was not enough. The attack lasted 3 hours. When it was over, New Sol was a dead rock floating in space. The blue oceans had boiled away. The green forests were gone. The cities were nothing but glass craters. 47,732 humans were dead. Every single one had been a civilian. Farmers, teachers, children, grandparents, all gone. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was chaos. Representatives from hundreds of species shouted at each other in anger and fear. Elder Voss High of the Eldari demanded immediate punishment for the Vorthak. War Chief Braktul of the Kron said it was an impressive show of strength. Many, smaller species began quietly changing sides. If the Vorthak could destroy human worlds so easily, maybe it was better to be their friends than their enemies. Ambassador Kim sat in perfect silence as the recordings played on the big screen. The orbital bombardment. Governor Yoon's final message before he died. The death screams of an entire world. When the horrible footage ended, the chamber was completely quiet. Everyone waited to see what the human would say. Kim stood up slowly and walked to the center of the room. When he spoke, his voice was so calm it was scary. The Vorthak Empire has just made the biggest mistake in galactic history, he said quietly. They have shown the entire galaxy that they are not a civilization. They are rabid animals that must be put down. He paused and looked directly at the hologram of Gulthex, who was attending the meeting from his flagship. I am calling back all human ambassadors from Vorthak space. All human civilians have 48 hours to leave. After that, the Vorthak Empire will no longer exist. Gulthex laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Empty threats from a species with 12 old warships. Humans are emotional children who make noise but cannot fight. Kim's voice cut through the laughter like a laser sword. 47,732 humans died on New Sol. Every single death will be answered. He stared at Gulthex with eyes like ice. The Vorthak Empire has 14 inhabited systems. That is about 4 billion Vorthak lives. I call that a good start. The chamber fell into shocked silence. Even the violent Kron delegate looked worried. Several alien species began quietly updating their files about human psychology. You see, Kim continued, there is something about humans that you clearly do not understand. We are not naturally a military species. We prefer trade, art, philosophy. We like turning dead worlds into gardens. But when you murder our children... His smile never reached his eyes. When you murder our children, we become something else completely. As Kim walked out, leaving the chamber in chaos, nobody noticed Dr. Tae Min Lee quietly sending a coded message to Earth. The message had only coordinates and 2 words: execute Prometheus. Across the galaxy, human colonies went completely dark. Not destroyed, just silent. To most watchers, it looked like humanity was hiding in terror, afraid of more Vorthak attacks. They were wrong. In secret shipyards that no alien knew existed, the greatest construction project in human history was beginning. 20 years of preparation were about to pay off. The Vorthak had just declared war on a species that had been quietly preparing for this exact moment since the day they joined the galactic community. The children of New Sol would be avenged. But the galaxy was about to learn that human revenge was nothing like what they expected. The Ghost Fleet. 3 weeks after New Sol died, strange things began happening in Vorthak space. Patrol ships reported seeing something big moving through hyperspace, but when they went to investigate, nothing was there. Mining stations stopped, sending messages home. Supply convoys simply disappeared without sending distress calls. Fleet Admiral Carvex was eating dinner in his private room when his assistant sub-commander Theklar burst in with an urgent report. The Admiral was enjoying his favorite meal of live squirmer larvae when the interruption came. Sir, we have lost contact with the mining station in the Korthal system, Theklar reported nervously. Carvex barely looked up from his squirming. Food. Probably pirates. Send a patrol ship to check it out. Sir, that is the 15th installation we have lost this week. And the patrol we sent to Korthal never came back either. That got the Admiral's attention. The Vorthak 7th Fleet was the pride of their military. These were ships that had conquered dozens of star systems. The idea that anyone could threaten them seemed impossible. Show me the tactical map, Carvex ordered. A hologram appeared showing all of Vorthak space, 14 core systems connected by hyperspace travel routes. Red marks showed where they had lost contact with stations and patrols. As Carvex studied the pattern, he felt afraid for the first time in years. The lost installations formed a perfect spiral, slowly moving toward their home system. Sir, Theklar said quietly, intelligence thinks it might be human raiders. Small, hit-and-run attacks to get revenge for New Sol. Humans? Carvex laughed, but it sounded forced. They have 12 ancient warships. We destroyed their entire military at New Sol. On the bridge, Communications Officer Velkana suddenly went stiff at her control station. Admiral, I am detecting a transmission. It is broadcasting on all frequencies to every ship in our fleet. Put it through the speakers. The voice that filled the bridge was calm and professional, completely human. Commander Hyojin Park spoke like she was reading a weather report, but her words made every Vorthak officer feel cold. Attention Vorthak military forces. This is the human vessel Retribution. You are now violating the Geneva Convention, the Accords of Mars, and the Human Colonial Defense Statute. By the authority given to me by Earth Defense Command, I am authorized to use any and all methods necessary to get justice for the 47,732 human civilians murdered at New Sol. Carvex's crew looked at each other nervously. They could not locate where the transmission was coming from. It seemed to be coming from everywhere at once. Your choices are simple, Commander Park continued. Surrender immediately for trial, under galactic law, or keep resisting and face the consequences. You have committed genocide. The penalty is the complete destruction of your military and the return of all territories you stole from other species over the past century. The transmission paused. When it started again, there was something different in the human's voice. Something that made several Vorthak officers step back from their stations without knowing why. Admiral Carvex, I know you are listening. The children you murdered on New Sol? One of them was 5 years old. Her name was Sujin Choi. She wanted to be a terraforming engineer like her mother. She collected pictures of alien flowers and dreamed of planting gardens on dead worlds. Another pause. The silence on the bridge was complete. I want you to remember her name, Admiral, because you are going to answer for what you did to her very soon. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in absolute quiet. Sir, the censor, operator tech specialist Grovnik said in a whisper, I am reading massive hyperspace disturbances around our fleet. Something is decloaking. The Retribution appeared directly next to their flagship like a deadly ghost materializing from nothing. It was twice the size of their biggest ship, sleek and predatory, but it was not alone. Around the entire Vorthak fleet, dozens of human vessels shimmered into existence like deadly spirits. These were not like any human ships in their military databases. These were purpose-built warships with scarred angular hulls that seemed to radiate barely contained violence. Impossible, Carvex whispered. Humans do not have ships like these. They do not have this technology. Dr. Tae-Min Lee would have smiled if she could hear him. 3 weeks of non-stop construction in hidden shipyards. 3 weeks of humanity's greatest minds working with a single, terrible purpose. The ships surrounding the Vorthak fleet represented every breakthrough in human military science, compressed into a timeline that should have been impossible. But grief, it turned out, was an excellent motivator. All ships, Commander Park's voice echoed through space. Begin Operation Prometheus. Let's light their world. The battle began immediately, but it was not really a battle. It was a demonstration of what happened when humanity's greatest strength, their ability to adapt and learn, was focused into pure, calculated revenge. The Vorthak had the largest military force in their sector of space, but they had made a critical mistake. They thought human ships would fight like human ships, long-range battles, organized formations, predictable strategies. They were completely wrong. Commander Park stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the tactical display with the calm focus of a surgeon performing an operation. Around her, volunteers from every human colony worked with mechanical precision. Many of them had lost family on New Sol. Lieutenant Dong-Wook Han, what is the status of our gravity generators? Park asked. Fully charged, Commander. All ships report ready for synchronized activation. Park nodded. The gravity manipulation technology had been just theory until 3 weeks ago. Now 23 human vessels were about to show its practical uses. Signal the fleet. Execute Pattern 7. The human ships did not move like normal vessels. They danced through space in impossible spirals. Their gravity generators created local distortions that bent space itself. Vorthak weapons, designed to fire in straight lines, found their targets, suddenly displaced by thousands of kilometers. Meanwhile, human weapons followed curved paths, striking from angles that should not have existed. Admiral Carvex watched in growing horror as his fleet was systematically taken apart. "How are they doing this? Our sensors cannot even lock onto them." His answer came from Dr. Tae-Min Lee, broadcasting from the human science vessel Newton's Revenge. "Temporal displacement fields, Admiral. We exist approximately 0.3 seconds out of phase with normal space-time. Your weapons are firing at where we were, not where we are." The human scientist's voice carried the cold satisfaction of someone explaining a beautiful mathematical equation. "It is based on research into quantum archaeology, recovering information from quantum fluctuations in cosmic background radiation. We have learned so much about extinct civilizations and their final moments." The message was clear. The Vorthak were about to become another extinct civilization for humans to study. Prometheus burning. The battle for the Vorthak home system lasted exactly 47 minutes, 1 minute for each 1,000 humans murdered at New Sol. It was not really a battle. It was a demonstration of what happened when humanity's greatest strength was turned into pure, calculated revenge. The Vorthak 7th Fleet was the largest military force in their part of the galaxy. But they had made a terrible mistake. They thought human ships would fight like human ships. Long-distance battles, organized formations, predictable strategies. They were completely wrong. Commander Hyejin Park stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the battle display with the calm focus of a surgeon. Around her, volunteers from every human colony worked with perfect precision. Many had lost family on New Sol. "Lieutenant Dong-Wook Han. Status on the gravity generators?" Park asked. "Fully charged, Commander. All ships report ready for synchronized activation." Park nodded. The gravity manipulation technology had been just theory until 3 weeks ago. Now 23 human vessels were about to show its practical uses in real combat. "Signal the fleet. Execute Pattern 7. The human ships moved through space in impossible ways. They danced in spirals that hurt the eyes to watch. Their gravity generators created local distortions that bent space itself. Vorthak weapons, designed to fire in straight lines, found their targets suddenly moved several thousand kilometers away. Meanwhile, human weapons followed curved paths, hitting from angles that should not have existed. Admiral Carvex watched, in growing horror as his fleet was systematically destroyed. His ships were being cut apart like paper by weapons that seemed to come from nowhere. "How are they doing this? Our sensors cannot even lock onto them." Carvex shouted at his crew. His answer came from Dr. Tae-Min Lee, broadcasting from the human science vessel Newton's Revenge. "Temporal displacement fields, Admiral. We are existing approximately 0.3 seconds out of phase with normal space-time. Your weapons are firing at where we were, not where we are." The human scientist's voice carried the cold satisfaction of someone explaining a particularly elegant equation. "It is based on research into quantum archaeology, the recovery of information from quantum fluctuations in cosmic background radiation. We have learned so much about extinct civilizations and their final moments." The message was clear and terrifying. The Vorthak were about to become another extinct civilization for humans to study. Park's voice cut through the communication channel. "Dr. Lee, I believe the Admiral is more interested in his immediate problems." "Of course, Commander. Admiral Carvex, you might be interested to know that we have been monitoring your private communications for the past 18 hours. We know about your plan to evacuate key personnel to the Kolves system. We also know about the civilian shields you have positioned around your orbital defense platforms." The Vorthak bridge crew exchanged terrified looks. Their communications were supposed to be quantum encrypted, unbreakable by any known technology. "The thing about humans, Admiral," Dr. Lee continued in a conversational tone, "is that we are very good at learning from our mistakes. When you showed us that targeting civilians was an acceptable military tactic, you taught us something valuable about your strategic thinking." On the tactical display, human ships began moving toward the Vorthak orbital installations. But instead of firing weapons, they deployed what looked like massive electromagnetic nets around each platform. "Transport inhibitors," Park explained. "Nothing gets in or out of those energy fields. The civilians you are using as shields are now perfectly safe, but also perfectly trapped with you." Carvex realized with growing horror that the humans had neutralized his hostages without firing a single shot. "This is impossible!" No species develops this level of tactical sophistication in 3 weeks. You are right, Park agreed. Most species do not. But most species have not spent their entire evolutionary history killing each other with ever-increasing creativity. Her voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. Do you know what humans call the study of war, Admiral? We call it military science. We have made an academic discipline out of organized violence. The human fleet had finished surrounding all the Vorthak positions, but instead of delivering a killing blow, they simply stopped moving. Admiral Carvex, Park continued, I want you to look at your tactical display very carefully. Notice that every one of your ships is now targeted by at least 3 of ours. Notice that your weapons cannot lock onto us, but ours are already locked onto you. Notice that your escape routes are blocked, your communications are compromised, and your hostages are neutralized. She paused, letting the full meaning sink in. Now I want you to imagine that this is not your home system. Imagine this is a peaceful, farming colony with minimal defenses. Imagine that instead of military vessels, those are civilian transports full of children. And imagine that instead of soldiers who swore an oath to defend their people, those are farmers and teachers and scientists who never hurt anyone in their lives. The silence on the Vorthak bridge was complete. That is what you destroyed at New Sol, Admiral. That is what 47,732 human beings experienced in their final moments. The absolute certainty that they were about to die, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Park's next words would be recorded in galactic military academies for centuries to come. The difference is, we are going to give you a choice they never had. The choice was simple: complete surrender or complete annihilation. Carvex looked around his bridge at his terrified crew. His ships were trapped, outgunned, and completely outmaneuvered. The humans had demonstrated technology beyond anything the Vorthak possessed. More importantly, they had shown the tactical brilliance to use it perfectly. What are your terms? Carvex asked quietly. Unconditional surrender of all military forces, Park replied immediately. All senior officers to be handed over for trial on genocide charges. Complete withdrawal from all territories seized through aggression over the past century. Full reparations for the massacre at New Sol. And if we refuse? Park's response was delivered in the same calm, professional tone she had used throughout the battle. Then we will demonstrate that human mercy has limits. You murdered 47,000 of our people, Admiral. We could easily return the favor 4 billion times over. She paused, letting that sink in. But we will not. Do you know why, Admiral? Because we are not like you. We do not murder innocents. We do not destroy civilian worlds. We fight military forces and leave the children alone. The distinction was clear, terrible, and absolute. You have 1 minute to decide, Admiral. Surrender and live, or resist and join the extinct civilizations we study in our archaeology classes. Carvex looked at his tactical display one more time. Dozens of human warships surrounded his fleet like predators around cornered prey. His weapons could not even target them. His communications were compromised. His escape routes were blocked. He had 1 minute to save not just his fleet, but his entire species. All Vorthak vessels, he said into his communicator, his voice heavy with defeat. Stand down. Cease all operations. We surrender. The human response was immediate and professional. Surrender accepted. Prepare to be boarded for processing. The legend. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the Great Chamber, all trying to understand what had happened in Vorthak space. In just 72 hours, humanity had shown military power that changed every strategic assessment in the galaxy. Elder Voss High of the Eldari stood at the central podium. His ancient voice carried clearly through the huge chamber. The situation has no precedent in galactic history. In less than 4 standard days, the human fleet has systematically neutralized the entire Vorthak military infrastructure across 14 star systems. 0 civilian casualties, 0 damage to non-military targets. War Chief Braktul of the Kron interrupted with obvious worry. This changes everything. How did a species with 12 primitive warships suddenly field a fleet capable of defeating the Vorthak Empire? Dr. Taman Lee, representing humanity at the session, smiled calmly. We built them. The chamber exploded with confused voices. Building an interstellar navy required decades of preparation, massive industrial infrastructure, and resources that humanity simply did not have. Impossible, declared Fluxandra, the Quillari trade minister. Our economic models show that humanity lacks the industrial capacity for such construction. Where did you get these vessels? Dr. Lee activated a holographic display showing human space. Instead of the small cluster of colonies most species expected, the display revealed a vast network of hidden installations. Shipyards, research facilities, and manufacturing centers were scattered throughout supposedly empty star systems. For the past 20 years, while serving on the Galactic Council, humanity has been preparing for this exact scenario, Dr. Lee explained calmly. We studied every major galactic conflict, analyzed every successful military doctrine, and planned for the day when someone would mistake our diplomacy for weakness. The revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. Humanity had not been the naive newcomers everyone assumed. They had been playing a completely different game all along. The ships we used against the Vorthak represent 3 weeks of final assembly, Dr. Lee continued. The research and development took 2 decades. We call it the Damocles Protocol, the sword hanging over any species that might consider humanity an easy target. Ambassador Gulthex, attending the session via hologram from his prison cell aboard the Retribution, looked broken and defeated. You are talking about conspiracy, planning for war while pretending to pursue peace. No, Dr. Lee corrected firmly. We planned for the day when peace would fail, and we specifically designed our response to minimize casualties while maximizing deterrent effect. She gestured to another display showing the Vorthak surrender terms. Your military has been neutralized. Your aggressive territorial expansion has been reversed. But your civilian population remains unharmed, and your homeworld is untouched. The contrast with New Sol was intentional and unmistakable. Commander Hyjin Park joined the session via transmission from the Vorthak home system. The Vorthak military surrender was unconditional. Admiral Carvex and his senior staff are in custody awaiting trial for genocide. All territories gained through aggression over the past century are being returned to their original inhabitants. Reparations for New Sol will be discussed separately. War Chief Braktol leaned forward intensely. And what of the human fleet? These new capabilities you have shown? Park's expression remained perfectly neutral. The human fleet will return to our space once the situation here is stable. As for our capabilities, she paused meaningfully. The Damocles Protocol remains in effect. The meaning was clear to everyone in the chamber. Humanity had just demonstrated that they possessed both the ability and the will to project overwhelming military force anywhere in the galaxy. But more importantly, they had shown the restraint to use that force precisely and proportionally. Elder Voss High spoke into the stunned silence. This session is adjourned. All species representatives should update their diplomatic protocols immediately. As the chamber emptied, quiet conversations began throughout the galaxy. Trade agreements with humanity suddenly became high priority for every species. Previous disputes were hastily resolved in humanity's favor. Several aggressive species quietly abandoned expansion plans in sectors near human space. But the most significant conversation happened in the Zenthari Imperial Palace, where Emperor Kestok spoke with his military advisors. What is our assessment of human military strength? The Emperor asked. His intelligence chief General Mordak looked uncomfortable. Unknown, Your Excellence, the ships they used against the Vorthak were clearly purpose-built for that specific campaign. We have no data on their total capabilities. And their industrial capacity? Also unknown. The hidden installations they revealed represent only a fraction of human space. There could be dozens more we have not detected. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. The Zenthari had been planning their own expansion into human-claimed systems. Those plans were now being hastily revised. Update our diplomatic status with humanity to full alliance, he ordered, and send them an invitation to establish trade, relationships, very generous terms. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. Within one standard month, humanity had received more diplomatic offers than in their previous 2 decades of galactic membership. The legend was born not from humanity's victory, but from their restraint. They had possessed the power to destroy entire worlds, but chose precision instead. They had demonstrated the ability to wage total war but selected limited objectives. Most importantly, they had shown that their revenge, terrible as it was, followed rules. Ambassador Junho Kim returned to Earth to find himself treated as a hero, but his first stop was the memorial garden planted where New Seoul's capital city had once stood. 47,732 trees had been planted, each one in memory of a human who had died there. As he walked among the young trees, Kim thought about the past month. Humanity had gained something it had never possessed before, the grudging respect of the galaxy's older species. But the price had been the innocence of 47,000 people who would never see the stars their deaths had secured for their species. The memorial's central monument carried a simple inscription in dozens of galactic languages. Never again. By any species, to any people, anywhere in the galaxy. And throughout the galaxy, species that had once seen humanity as weak primitives now told their children a different story. They spoke about the day the humans showed that